Hello, Michael. Welcome to this special show.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you again.
It is to see you again, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to do this special show with you. And it is a special show because it's actually for an iconic special event which is taking place in Derby on the 14th of December. It's a Thursday, and you are one of the speakers. And
Yes.
I think it's going to be an amazing event, to see you and David Icke and Gareth Icke and Richard Willett and Christianne van Wijk. Wijk. How do you pronounce that? It's Wijk, is it?
It's Christianne. I never call her Christiana because I never pronounce her surname. So
Well, yeah. So and it's hosted by Jaymie Icke. So it should be an amazing event. So when did you actually find out about the event, and when did they ask you to do it?
Well, I found out about it when I was at the studio anyway, because I film a weekly show on Ickonic now, which I film every Monday. And a number of weeks ago, while I was there anyway, Jaymie came up and said, "We're planning this event, a Christmas show, and we have several ideas in relation to how it may play out. Would you like to be involved in it?" So I said, "Yeah, of course. Just send me the details. Just let me know." And yeah, absolutely, I'm a definite for that. And then over the weeks, he's sort of like drip fed little bits of information in relation to how it may play out. Nothing's been confirmed yet, so I can't really say anything with any concrete evidence.
Yeah, because we don't know the actual location of the event yet, do we? As is always, because they keep it quiet in case we get people, the Nazis, try and come along and stop it.
Absolutely, it's been kept quiet. I mean, even I don't know the location at this stage, so it's been kept quiet. But there's going to be me, David Icke, Gareth Icke, Richard Willett, who has his own show on the network as well, and Christiana, who is also doing something. And as you say, Jaymie Icke is also hosting it.
We must find out how to pronounce her surname, mustn't we?
No, absolutely.
It's spelled Wijk, so I don't know if it's Wick with a silent J or something.
Yeah, I never call her Chris or Christiana, so I don't. I never got that far into the second name, but it's looking to be a fascinating night. Really, there's going to be a live audience there. There's going to be kind of a question and answer panel at least, which I think will extend beyond that. But at the moment, I just know that it will be a question and answer panel with all of us who are there. So as I say, I don't know how it's going to play out yet because nothing's been fully decided. And I don't even know the location myself yet. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be something different, and let's see how it goes. It has the potential to be very interesting because there's some people there.
Absolutely,
some interesting things to say.
And as we're recording this, there are still tickets available, but when this show goes out, I don't know if there'll be any tickets left. So we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, if there's still tickets left, I'll put a link out for it. But otherwise, I'll say we're sold out and that's it. Well, I say we sold out. I'm putting myself in a we part of it there. But
no, we are an intrinsic part of it. Nothing can go ahead unless there's people watching, unless there's an audience, and for the audience, there's no point being there unless there's something to watch.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
We all have to join forces as a team in order for this to be a success.
Yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued to actually. I've thought about this before. You and David Icke in conversation. I think it's going to be amazing if it happens like that.
I think it will. I mean, it's happened before. We did it before on Ickonic, because I say after the premiere of the movie we were all involved in called Divine Intervention, and Eric Van Daniken was involved in that as well. But at the end of the broadcast, David Icke and I did a live Q&A in the studio. So we have done it before. But the ironic thing is that probably 10, 11 years ago, I was an audience member watching a 9-hour talk of David Icke at Brixton Academy in London.
I was there.
Little did I know that I'd now be sharing the stage with him. It's really amazing how these things turn out, when your destiny is crafted a certain way for you.
It is, yeah, because I remember, I think Gareth, it was a few years ago, or probably about 3-4 years ago now, when Gareth put it out, he was looking for somebody who wanted that had historical knowledge of certain places or something, and I sort of suggested you, didn't I? And it kind of kicked off from that, really. I'm not putting myself in the place that I did it. I'm just saying that it's amazing how these things sort of develop, really.
Well, you had a significant part in that, because it was you that drew my attention to the request. And I hadn't seen the request itself until you copied me in and said this may be of interest to you.
Mm.
And I replied back to you on the same thread saying, it is, and if they want me to be involved, then I'll be involved. And as a result,
I mean, your name came to me straight away. I thought you're the ideal person to be involved in this, you know.
No, thank you. And Gareth got back in touch and says, you know, what do you talk about? This is the you know, the ethos of the show. I'm going to walk to certain locations, get to said locations. I want to speak to somebody with an alternative viewpoint within this field. So, you know, so what do you speak about? And I told him, and he said, well, the last place I'm going to, the last interview I'm going to do for this series is at Coventry Cathedral. And Coventry Cathedral's only like an hour from me. So he says, well, you know, come and meet there and do whatever. And we get there on the day, and it's absolutely throwing it down of rain. It's one of the most miserable days you can ever think of. And for anybody who's ever been to Coventry Cathedral, because the German Luftwaffe bombed it in the Second World War, it has no roof. So it really is largely no protection from the elements to be walking around and doing an interview. So as I arrived in Coventry, Gareth called me and says, we found an alternative location. We're in this beer garden under a tent. They've given us permission to film, and it's actually within sight of the cathedral, which we can use as a backdrop. So I changed the location, went there, met them, and we went under the canopy. And the cameramen were shivering and cold and wet, and it was really, really miserable. But a couple of months later, when it turned out to be Richard Willett, ironically, who was part of this, and he was the cameraman and editor that day. And a couple of months later, when he was editing it, he realised that the subjects that I was talking about was something that he's also really, really interested in. And even though not necessarily at the time, because he was miserable and cold, but in the dryness and warmth of the studio, he began to listen to the things that I was saying. And as a consequence of that, he says, well, I'd like you on my show. And then that one became 2, and then became 3, and became 4. And then other things came from it, you know, where Jaymie says, we want to film this series called Higher Consciousness, which I think it was a 5 or 6 part documentary. And I did that. And then there was the movie Divine Intervention. And then there was a reconstruction of one of my personal experiences, which went towards that film. And then there's other things that came about. And a number of years ago, we spoke about doing my own show at the same time, but nothing ever came of it at that time. And then probably about 6 months ago, Jaymie got in touch and says, we've done a market research in relation to the views of Ickonic, and we've asked them, what kind of subjects do you want to see? And he said, you know, a high percentage of them said, we want to know about ancient knowledge, we want to know about the ancient secrets. And he basically says, would you come in and fill that gap for us? So that is really how the weekly show.
Yeah, the perfect man who got you, yeah.
Well, that's how really the current weekly show that I'm doing now called Secret Knowledge was really birthed, because it kind of fitted into the gap that they needed to be filled. Obviously, as a result of that, there's now the Christmas show that we've just been talking about. So there's different things happening. There's a lot of things happening outside of Ickonic as well, but certainly within Ickonic, that's kind of how everything was birthed. And you were really, really exceptionally pinnacle in that moment. Because if you hadn't forwarded that to me, it may never have happened, but it may have happened eventually, but in a different way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just thought of you as being the ideal person for it, and I'm glad it sort of turned out that way. It's because I mean, I think this is probably about the 5th show we did now. We're doing now together, isn't it? Something like that. Anyway, 4 or 5, something like that we've done in the past.
Obviously, then we met face to face just to talk in Birmingham.
Yes, of course, we've met probably a couple of times as well, didn't we? But
yes.
I've got a few of your books as well. It's on the side here. But I mean, I'd like really to try and sort of, in case people sort of seeing it or listening to this don't really know too much about you. I'm sure there's not too many people out there, but maybe we could take you back to, because you used to be in the police force, didn't you, many years ago?
I did.
And you left it because of signs of corruption that you were seeing, and you were fed up with seeing what you were seeing, basically.
Yeah, there's another things really. When you're at school and you have to start thinking about, when I leave school, what do I want as a career? And you have the careers advisors coming in, like an outsourced agency. And you start to have to think, what do you want to do as a career? And for me, there was only ever one thing that I wanted to do, which was to be in the police force. Now, the police force is a 30-year career once you get in. And once I became of age to be able to apply, it took me quite a number of years, because then it was quite difficult to get in. They were looking for people who had life experience, who had actually done things, who had been in various workforces, and it was quite a difficult occupation to get in then. Not so now. So it took me a long while to get in, and I worked England's two largest cities, which was London, and then I transferred back to my home force, the West Midlands, and I was stationed in the city of Birmingham. So I was always frontline, patrol, 999 calls, non-emergency calls, dealing with things as it happened, when it happened, at the point of need. So at year 17, or leading up to year 17, there's a couple of factors involved in me deciding to quit and leave. One of them, as you just said, was the kind of, should we say, minor corruption, really. And that minor corruption was the likes of manipulation of crime figures, where the senior officers would then lie to the public and say that crime has gone down when really it hadn't. And the reason it hadn't is like a lot of occupations. You have KPIs, which is really a key performance indicator. And there's certain crimes that the Home Office had deemed to be a KPI. And one of them is vehicle crime. And there's a number of categories of vehicle crime, but I'll deal with the two main ones that are KPIs. The two main ones were theft of a motor vehicle and theft from a motor vehicle. Now, a theft of a motor vehicle is obviously someone breaks into the car and drives off with it. Theft from motor vehicle, again, as it would suggest, someone enters your car unlawfully and they steal something from inside your car, CD, sat-nav, mobile phone, whatever. That is theft of and theft from motor vehicle, which were KPI crimes. Now, in order to bring those KPI figures down, what they were doing, and I personally witnessed this when I've been in the crime management office, because they did it right in front of me, was they would reclassify it to something else. So theft of motor vehicle and theft from motor vehicle would then be reclassified as vehicle interference. Now, vehicle interference is not a KPI crime. So what they were doing, in effect, is saying that these KPI motor vehicle offences were being brought down, when in reality, all they were doing was renaming it.
Yeah, just sort of downgraded it, basically, yeah.
Downgrading it. So in a way, it's like people, there's less people catching flu, but there's more people catching COVID, when in reality, they're using the same figures. So what they were doing was fabricating the figures. And there's other examples of police response times when they would manipulate the figures to make it look like we were getting 100% in relation to an emergency call. You had 10 minutes from the point of call to the point of arrival on the doorstep. You had 10 minutes to get there. An early response, which was slightly downgraded, which is from the point of call to the point of doorstep, was 30 minutes. So it's not an emergency, but you have to get there within 30 minutes. And what they were doing, if we weren't meeting our 10-minute emergency response times, they would downgrade it to an early response. So we were basically always meeting the figures. There were times when senior officers would come into our parade and say, we want you to go to this particular park and initiate a stop and search. And I pointed out, and others pointed out, and refused to do it, that this is actually unlawful. Because when an officer stops you, it is called an encounter.
Yeah.
And when an encounter happens, the police officer is asking someone to account for their whereabouts. Now, for argument's sake, if I'm in the middle of the street at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I know now that there's a lot of car crime in that particular area, and I see 2 or 3 youths walking down a residential street at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I will stop the car and I will get out and say, lads, what are you doing? Where are you going? Now, that is an encounter, a stop, or if it turns out it may be a search. But it's certainly a lawful encounter because you're asking them to account, and you have a reason, a lawful reason to ask them why they're there. But we were being told, go and stop people who are walking their dogs or jogging through the park and record it as an encounter, which is unlawful. And as I said, you know, the whole parade said no. And it got to the point really where I turned around and said, now bearing in mind that I was the highest arresting officer for many, many years running for the whole of my area. And it was, you know, significant crimes. It was drug crimes, it was burglaries, it was robberies. And I was arresting more than anybody else in the whole of my area for many years running. And I just turned around and said, from this point on, I refuse to arrest anyone. So basically, I went on strike, and they just didn't know how to deal with it. I was called into the supervisor, the inspector's office many times, saying, you've been to this incident and you didn't follow force policy. Why? And I turned around and said, because force policy was ridiculous in these circumstances. And I quote, if you're going to send me to an incident, then I will deal with it how I see fit. And if you don't like that, don't send me. And that really was my response to them. So there's really, it's kind of an internal strike when I didn't remove my labour because I'm still doing the job, but I removed a significant part of doing that job.
Well, you were trying to fight the system, basically, weren't you?
It was, and they didn't know how to deal with me. But this was really leading up to the year 2009, which was year 17 of 30 for me. Now, again, coincidentally or not, at the same time, in fact, parallel time, I was basically being the subject of many, many paranormal and supernatural things. And this was happening literally every day or every night, you know, even on duty or not on duty. It was a mixture of the two. Such things as seeing dimensional portals happening in the sky and seeing craft coming out of them, you know, seeing potential landings, being face to face with beings not of this world, you know, and having all of these different experiences where I witnessed my emails being removed and then copied and put back. You know, I had my phones tapped and conversations were recorded. We had an engineer come out to our telephone box outside the network, the Wijk network, for our landline. And he knocked on the door and said, I've found this. It shouldn't be there. I don't know what it is, but I'm taking it back to wherever it came from. So there was anomalies that were recording my conversations. And there'd be incidents where I'd be in bed upstairs, and then my dad would ring on the mobile. My mobile would be downstairs, and I would be upstairs in bed asleep. And the one morning my dad rang, I think it was about 7 or 7:30 in the morning, saying, are you okay? You know, you just rang me. So, well, how can I? My phone's downstairs and I'm upstairs. So there's obviously there was something going on in relation to monitoring me and what I was seeing and recording and who I was speaking to. So this was really turning my world around. And I was a different person to what I was. So it was really preventing me from being in an environment that I once thrived in. And all of these things kind of married together was the reason that without any emotion, I just walked, gave him my resignation. In fact, the only emotion was the surprise of not being emotional. And then I had my final interview, my exit interview with the chief superintendent. And my final words to him were, you decide what it is that I have to do, but I'm the one that decides whether or not I do it. Bye. That was my last words. And that really was the end of a 30-year career that if you'd have told me when I joined that I was going to be leaving, then, you know, I'd have put you in the institution, you know.
Yeah. I mean, because I mean, did you say goodbye to like pensions and everything as well?
Now, there's different things that you can do with your pension. You can.
I'm not being. I know it's kind of a personal question, but I'll just kind of.
Now, there's several things that you can do. Obviously, no one leaves this job, so you're not. But if you do before your time, you can either freeze the pension, which means whatever's been put into it at that point is frozen. So when you become at pensionable age, that's when you get it.
Right. Yeah.
Or you can take it and you can put it into a private pension.
Yeah, because you would have had to. You would have already been paying into it yourself anyway.
Well, when I was there, I was paying 11% per month. Now it's now 15%, but at the time it was 11% each month, and my salary would go towards the pension. So I put a lot of money into it over the years. So basically, it was frozen. Now in X amount of years' time, it will be released. Just like any other pension, you have to reach a certain age before you're eligible for it. So those are the options that you can do. You don't lose it. but you're no longer contributing to it, so it never
Yes.
any more than
So
what
you would have got the normal pension that you would have done had you served your full time sort of thing. But
yeah, if I'd have served my full time, then it would have been worth more because there'd have been another 13 years added
yeah,
to
yeah.
what it was frozen at. But that really wasn't a consideration.
No.
I had nothing to go into. I had nothing to do. I had no ideas about what I was going to do. But whatever it was going to be, it wasn't going to be as bad as what I was doing now.
Did you, when you were in the police force, were there any paranormal events that actually happened within within your duties, sort of thing? Or
Lots,
yeah,
lots. Yeah, some of them were well. When I was on duty, the majority were where with other emergency worker witnesses. There's one event when there was another officer and 2 paramedics, and we all saw a craft, and we all commented on seeing it. And I called other officers into the area, and they caught it as well on its second circuit. There'd be other incidents where there'd be lots of officers involved, witnessing these things. There's one incident where I was on nights and I was just leaving a house, and again there was 2 paramedics and another officer there. And because we were relatively close to an international airport, I looked up in the sky and saw like a ball of fire, or what appeared to me to be a ball of fire. And my first reaction was, it must be an aeroplane in distress, because that's what it looked like. It looked like the size of a civil airliner, and it was just a ball of fire. So I thought, there's a plane or something on fire. And the paramedic behind me looks up and says, "What's that?" So, the 4 of us saw it. The 4 expert eyewitnesses saw it. And it came round silently above us, and I took pictures of it, which bore no resemblance to what we saw with the naked eye. And then it came round again. As I say, I called other officers in to witness the same thing. Now, 3 weeks later, in the exact same area, again on night duty, the police helicopter was just leaving an incident in that area. And as he was going back to Birmingham International Airport, which is its base, it was followed by a ball of fire. And Birmingham International Airport refused it permission to land until this had gone, because it was following the helicopter back to the airport. And it was all recorded on onboard cameras, and all the incident logs were restricted, so nobody could see what actually happened. But it was the same thing that I'd seen 3 weeks earlier and photographed. So the portal opening and the craft coming out of the portal was when I was on night shift. So there's a lot of incidents when I was on duty and when I was not on duty. Now, when I was not on duty, I was just driving in my own car with a passenger. And as we're going through our town centre on a busy Saturday afternoon, beautiful blue skies, me and the passenger looked up and saw 3 gigantic cigar-shaped UFOs above our town in the sky. Now, you would expect it to be like a scene from Independence Day. People had dumped their cars at the side of the road and they're all looking up. Nobody else could see it. And the reason I say that nobody else could see it is because nobody else was reacting. Now, if you see absolutely huge, gigantic, 3 cigar-shaped UFOs above your town, there's going to be a reaction of some kind. And there's only me and the passenger that could see them, and that is a vibratory alignment to catch a glimpse. So it was happening literally every day or every night.
Yeah, I've heard that before, actually. It seems like only people in a certain place see these things, and if you're outside of that parameter, you don't see it.
Right, yeah.
Or if it's like a vibration plane or something that you're within.
It's a frequency because there's so many existences around us simultaneously in any given moment. But usually, because they're operating in a different frequency spectrum, we're not aware of them. Now, when our frequencies align, then we'll be able to see them and interact and hear them. So when people see these craft, or when these craft appear, 9 times out of every 10 it's because it was a deliberate act for them to see it. So it is a vibration and a frequency alignment that enables you to catch a glimpse of these worlds that ordinarily we don't see.
And then, did they actually log these things as well, or did they sort of try to work around them, and so they didn't have to make note of these things in their logs, in the police logs?
They have to log them, because when you have, airborne traffic like a helicopter or anything like that being interfered with in aerospace, then there's certain authorities that have to know. So, the airport authorities had to know, and they did know because refused the helicopter landing permission,
Hmm.
you'd have to have the MOD involved, because again, it's a potential breach of airspace. So there's different authorities that have to be involved. The police would have recorded it, and I know certainly this incident was recorded, but everything was restricted, so only certain people could actually have access to what happened. So it is recorded. Sometimes if an individual like me sees it just in the course of their duty, then obviously it's a matter how I record it, that there's no rule that says that I have to document it in an official capacity. So it's up to me how I record it, which I recorded it in different ways. But the official ones that they cannot not record have to be recorded.
Right. I just wondered how they got around it, if they tried to sort of just sort of put a block on it or and keep it quiet. And
well, I did, because they restricted it.
Yeah. So nothing ever got out to the papers or anything like that. No.
No.
Or on the odd occasion, I suppose something might have crept out. But,
sometimes, I mean, bear in mind, when you're actually involved in these institutions, it's quite difficult to speak openly about certain things because of the personal consequences to you.
Yeah.
Now, if you are an airline pilot and you start speaking openly about all the things that you're seeing in the sky, the authorities frown upon that and come down on you in certain ways. And not that I just didn't see any relevance to report it outside until I'd left the service, when I thought, having all of these experiences, how can I document it best so that other people can see what I've experienced in case they're experiencing the same thing? And it may give them some kind of help, some kind of semblance of order in their own mind as to just what it is they're experiencing. And I concluded, like many people do, that the best place to document these things are in books, because then they are available for people to read at their pace in their own time.
Yeah. Well, I know the first show we ever did, we were talking we went back on your early days, and you brought out a book which you'd written with your wife. It was called Walking into the Light, where you did a rescue of a little girl. For the sake of so I've got the video. I was just holding for people on the just audio. I'm holding the book up, but I must excuse if you heard a little bit of a scraping noise. I've just had the window cleaner up at my window, so
okay.
I don't know if anyone heard it, but he's just rinsed the window off now. But anyway, right. Now, so the book you wrote with your wife, it's called Walking into the Light: A Journey of a Light Worker Duo. That was kind of your first instance into getting into writing. And I guess it's your new career, really, wasn't it? In a way.
Again, building on the how can I best document what is happening. It kind of took me into the writing of books. Many years ago, when I used to think about people writing books, I thought it's probably as boring as it gets. Because I never really had any inspiration or any desire to write any books. But when I started documenting what was happening, then I began to really enjoy writing, and I found it a great way to express. It was a great way as an outlet.
And having been a policeman, I think you probably knew how to write things and document things as well.
Well, yes, and again, when you are within that kind of service, what you are evidentially writing. Now, evidential writing is basically fact. So it taught me to just speak in fact in a concise way, and then not only do you have to write it in a factual, concise way, but you then have to go to court and present it in a concise and factual way. So that kind of molded me into a writing style and a speaking style. This is the facts. You're not interested in anything else outside of the facts. Let's just give you the facts, give you the reasons why, and let's move on. And that really forged how I write and how I speak about what I write. But I really began to enjoy it. And then that led to the next one, and then the next one. And with each book came a greater depth, greater knowledge. So even though I started off being a multiple experiencer, I didn't necessarily know at that particular time what it was that I was experiencing, or was there any scientific proof or anything in order to back up what I was seeing. But that came later. you know, and then that it kind of went through a metamorphosis of a different degree of depth, and it went from experiencing to understanding what I was experiencing, to then start having quantum equations and genetic equations come into my head.
And this really blows my mind, all this, all the mathematics part of it.
It wasn't, which when I looked into it, you know, it turned out to be, some of it was known physics and some of it was not. But it was really relating to angular velocity and axis travel and different things, space travel, in other words. And then I was you know, sitting in my room at home, and all of a sudden this see-through orb would come into my bedroom, and I could see advanced technology inside the orb, you know. And then that moved on to really having, you know, blueprinted information about what the ancient world was really telling us, and what the pyramids were for, and what Stonehenge is, and what it all means, and how really that all of these ancient civilizations were not separate civilizations as we are told, but they were all operating within the same core of knowledge. And then I looked into the 4,200 recorded religions and found the same thing, that if you actually look and you bring it all the way back to the core essence of what they're all talking about, it's the same thing. So we have the bark of the tree, which is the truth, and then we have the divisive branches where people think that these are individual things. They're not. They all belong to the same tree. And if and you know, I rightly came to the conclusion that if people understood this, instead of being separated and divided by a belief system, they would be unified by the belief system, because all of those belief systems are saying the exact same thing, but under a different expression. It's like me now writing a book called the Book of Crimson, and you writing a book called the Book of Red. And people think that they are both talking about completely different things. But when you bring it back and analyze it, crimson is red. So we're talking about the same things. And if humanity was to realize the error of their ways and actually bring it back to the core essence of knowledge, which is really, there's only one true religion, and that is illumination. And all else is false. It's a false light. But if they bring it back to that core of illumination, then whether you are Islamic, Judaic, Christian, Catholic, Hinduism, they're all saying the same thing.
Yeah, because everyone talks about the illumination, don't they? In every religion, yeah.
Yes.
Well, not that I know a lot about every religion, but the religions that I sort of know a little bit about. I mean, I was actually confirmed a member of the church, and when I in my early days, and I left, I started thinking, well, things are just not right here. So I sort of stopped going to church, basically, because I just thought, well, I don't need to be in a church to have my beliefs. You know, I don't have to go to a church every day. I can still have my beliefs at home. And I'm spiritual. I believe in spirit and everything. And, you know, I think that's really the way to go. I don't think we need churches to actually go to. I mean, I love the buildings. I love the, obviously, I did a tour with you and you showed us all the Mason parts of it and everything. And it was fascinating. It was the monastery, wasn't it? We visited.
It was. And, I mean, I absolutely love the secret symbols, but again, the secret symbols are leading you back to that illumination.
Yeah, it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I mean, and also when you see Christ, you see like the illumination coming out of his head and things like that, don't you? And the halos and everything. It's all connected, isn't it? As I've learned from you a lot over the years.
it's all connected to your own inner illumination, your own fire, which is the God within you, which is the Christ within you.
Yeah.
And when you look at certain words, you know, what does the word Jesus mean? It means divine breath. What does the Hebrew God Yahweh mean? In its tetragrammaton form, YHWH, it means to inhale and exhale, to give and you shall receive. So it's the Holy Spirit, it's the breath of God. It's the Enlil of the Sumerian story. They are the same things. Now, when you look at the alphabet, what is the alphabet? It is the Aleph house, the ox house. Now, the first two letters of oxygen are OX, ox. So we are the alphabet because we are the house of oxygen.
Yeah.
You know, the Holy Spirit. And the word Christ is concealed in the alphabet as QRST, which is the divine breath. Now, when any word that has spire in it, aspire, inspire, conspire, expire, Spire means breath, which is really the art of breathing, which is what spiritualism is. So when you are spiritual, you are Jesus, because that's all it is.
Yeah.
Now, when you are a conspiracy theorist, it means to breathe as one.
Wow.
That's all it is.
I mean, the amazing thing is that our friend David Icke has been saying these types of things for years, and he had he took a lot of ridicule over it, didn't he? Because people were saying, "Oh, he was saying he was God and he was Christ and everything," but he wasn't saying that at all. He was actually sort of saying that we are all part of the same thing. Basically, that's what he was saying.
And anyone who breathes is Jesus.
Mm.
Because that's what word Jesus means, divine breath, or the circulation of divine breath. You give, you shall receive.
Yeah.
And you know, the Sphinx has no nose because we've separated ourselves from God. There is no divine breath or circulation of Christ if you have no nose, because the Bible says that God breathes the breath of life into the nostrils of Adam. So if you have no nostrils, you have no breath of life. You are disconnected from God. So no, I mean, everything is always ridiculed because it is an ignorant mind that doesn't know how to react. So it reacts by scorn and ridicule.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
And that really is an outer means of trying to patch over and fill what is emptiness within. And it comes out in different ways: anger, hate, ridicule, and scorn.
Yeah.
It's really the perfect definition of complete ignorance.
Mm. Well, even today, I mean, we get a lot of news reports today of UFOs and alien visits and everything. It's still treated as a joke on the mainstream media, even though we're getting these reports of the Pentagon taking it all seriously and everything like that. You know, it's crazy.
Alien visitation has been on Earth since the year dot. It's been recorded in so many ways. It's been recorded in the Great Pyramid. There are alien technologies in secret rooms of the Great Pyramid that tell you about the 7 entrance points of Earth. Now, when you start talking about Antarctica and things and what's going on there, well, they are the entry and exit points into Earth. There are civilizations within Earth. That's how they get in and out. That is why your Antarcticas and things are heavily guarded. Now, all of this information is encrypted within extraterrestrial metals inside the Great Pyramid. They are recorded in cave paintings, in Nazca lines, in Stonehenges, in the pyramids themselves, on the Sidonian city on Mars, on the pyramids and the obelisks of all the planets of the solar system. There is this network of information that is telling us that from the year dot, there has been visitations. The pharaohs of Egypt were star travelers. They are what is known as the Anunnaki. So the Anunnaki of the Sumerian scrolls are the pharaohs of Egypt. So that is where there is a slight discrepancy with the Zechariah Sitchin part of it, because it is an Egyptian thing. And the star travelers who used to induce the soul out of their body through the pyramid shafts into certain star systems were the pharaohs. So they were the Anunnaki, and they have other evidence and other reason for saying that. But what I see as advanced aliens, positive aliens, are really advanced humans, and they are coming back to help us because we are in need of help.
Oh, definitely.
And they have got to. They were once. That they still are in humanoid form. Maybe they were once of planet Earth, but they outgrew it, and as a result of outgrowing it with a greater frequency, they then had to continue that soul journey in other star systems, because other star systems are a different vibration, they are different timelines, they are different dimensions, and they are your positive aliens, they are advanced humans.
I mean, what do you see about we hear this theory, I mean, David Icke mentions it, about everything's like a matrix, like the holographic universe. I mean, what is your opinion of that? Do you think there's any truth in that, or?
There's certainly, my opinion of the universe is that there's 2 universes within one, and that is why we have the black matter, the blackness of space, and the parts of space that we can see, which are light. Now, when you look at science, they talk about the Big Bang being the start of everything, even though a large amount of scientists now are starting to acknowledge that there must have been something before the Big Bang. Now, what that something before the Big Bang is an already existing universe called a dimensionless universe. Now, the dimensionless universe is a universe of light and thought. Now, from within that universe, when you have, there's things called a mathematical transform and a mathematical inverse. That is basically expansion, retraction, expansion, retraction. Now, when the dimensionless universe expanded, that's the Big Bang. And it was that expansion that created the material universe that we now exist in. But the material, the dimensional, and the dimensionless universe exist simultaneously. Now, the mechanism in which to transform from dimensionless to dimensional, or from dimensional to dimensionless, is a black hole. So you now know what a black hole is. It's the transform between the two states of the universes. Now, where the two worlds meet, now you see the double chevron at the entrance of the Great Pyramid, which is Shabua, which means where the two worlds meet. Where the two worlds meet is called the Horus. Now, that gives us such words as horoscope, because it is the scope of Horus. Or if you want to put that into Egyptian gods, Horus. So, where the two worlds meet, which is the Great Pyramid as well, where the two worlds meet in the sky is Horus. But you have this dimensionless and dimensional universe. Now, when you start looking at human bodily movements, they are known as Fourier mathematics. So they are basically mathematical movements, mathematics being the language of the universe. Now, it is Fourier mathematics that scientists used to create what we now know as the hologram. So human bodily movements are mathematically holographic. So that would be consistent with potentially, reality not being what you expect it to be. So yes, I can subscribe to that. If you look, most people create a reality based on a 5-sense consciousness. So your 5 senses glean information from universal waves, which they pass to the brain. The brain then creates what it believes to be reality, largely based on memory. So, well, this looks the same this time as it did before, so therefore it must be what it was. And so the brain creates this reality, which is not a true reality. It is a 5-sense consciousness. And when you look at the Horus symbol, it is telling you to look beyond the 5-sense consciousness in order to see the true reality. So when you actually step out and you go through the pupil of the eye of Horus, you go into this expanse, which is the true reality. So most people would never see the true reality. In relation to the matrix comes from the matter X, which is really the womb, the first principle in which we come into this world, and which we also leave this world to go back to the cosmic womb, the first principle. And this is symbolized in the Ionic archways of the church, the first principles of creation, where you come in and where you go out. And when you see the likes of Donald Trump doing this kind of symbol, the 2 thumbs relate to the ether. So it relates to the cosmic womb that we all go back to as an advanced soul. So I do get the valid arguments that this may be holographic and a simulation, because there's mathematical and holographic evidence that would support that view. But who knows? It's a case of.
That was interesting what you said about Donald Trump. Is he consciously doing that? Is it a sign that he's actually consciously doing that?
Yes, they're all signs and symbols that they know. When you see the likes of American presidents doing this, and they've got the left arm straight, and they've got the palm of the right hand over the heart, and people saying, "Oh, he's saying that he loves us." Nonsense. It is what they are doing. It is Hippocrates, which is the Egyptian god of silence. So, in other words, there are many things to see and hear, but few to be published. Secrets. That's what he's saying. We know, you don't. We can communicate that between the people who do know, and all of you people think it means something else.
So I mean, do you think that the likes of Joe Biden and Donald Trump, do you think they are aware of the alien presence on this planet? And or is it people that actually are behind them that do a lot of the controlling and everything that
Yeah,
are more aware?
it's more that there are departments that are called above government. So by virtue of their name, it tells you that they are above government, and it's usually within those kind of organisations that the main knowledge, the main information is known. Obviously, there's people in presidential positions that have had things drip fed to them, or they've experienced things, or they've had things given to them and told to them. But it's usually the ones who are above government that know. But anybody who can think rationally would acknowledge that in this universe is teemed with life.
Mm.
But the problem with modern day science, certainly mainstream science, is that they are only acknowledging that there is a material universe, dimensional universe, because everything that they do points to matter, points to solidity, points to a dimensional material universe. But unless they start to acknowledge that in coexistence to that, there is a dimensionless universe, then their equations will just take them from side to side instead of forwards, because all they're doing is coming up with different equations that are taking them around in circles. They've almost hit a cul-de-sac in which they can't go much further because they're not acknowledging that there's also another simultaneous universe in existence. So they should be aware if they're not. And as I say, anybody who can think rationally would say that really, how can humanity in a small speck of this universe be the only life?
Oh,
How?
definitely.
I
Yeah.
mean, to me, to be even having this conversation seems utterly ridiculous.
Mm. Oh, sorry about that. But
No, no, I'm just
no, no.
I'm referring to the likes of,
Yeah, no, I'm only
you know,
joking.
the mainstream face of Brian Cox, Professor
Yeah,
Brian
yeah, yeah.
Cox,
No, I agree with
you
you.
know,
Yeah.
putting it all over the BBC that, oh, we've not found alien life yet, and
No,
it can't
I
be this.
agree completely.
It may well be little microbes in water. It's utter nonsense.
Mm,
You know, and those are the people that I'm referring to when I say
mm,
to have that conversation is utterly ridiculous.
mm, mm.
You know, their
No, I
math,
completely agree with you there. Yeah.
their mathematics point to the existence of these universes, to these other worlds, but they're denying its existence.
Mm. Or do they know? Or do they know more? And they're sort of trying to keep it quiet, and so the rest of us don't think along those lines. I wonder.
They always know more. You know,
Mm,
they always know more. It's to what extent they know. It's like saying, well, I'm a third degree Mason. You know, I know more than somebody who's a first or second degree Mason. But you don't know anything really, because you know you are shown a symbol. When you join, you're saying that is a symbol and that's what it means. And you think, well, you know, somebody of the high degrees has just told me that this is what it means, so that's what it means. But really, the intent and the idea is not for them to know, but to imagine that
mm,
they know. And that is the same with a lot of truth group movements and UFO groups and everything else. They are told that they have the truth, but they don't. And until they realise that they've been given a falsity in which they've run with as truth, they will not get much further either. You know, you have to realise that if you imagine that humanity is a cloud, for want of a better, you know, analogy, humanity is a lump of cloud, and the system realises that there's going to be small fractions of that cloud that are going to think there's something not right, and we want to look into what it is that is not right. So what they do is they give those little piece of fragments that have separated from the main cloud a little bit of information. You know, like Baphomet is the sign of the devil, or that is 666, which is satanic, or that is a satanic symbol, or, you know, 666 is a bad thing, realizing that it's actually not. 666 has nothing to do with the devil, it's not a bad thing. Neither is Baphomet, neither is that, neither is that. But if they can convince these little bits of cloud that it is, then those little bits of cloud will also then start creating their own clouds, their own mass, but that mass will be given false teachings, believing that because it's different to the original mass, it must be right. It is not. So, there's a lot of illusion and deception going on. Even the people who are the so-called truth movements, they do not know the truth. I was talking a couple of months ago now, again in Birmingham, at the same place as I met you. And I was talking about Christ not being an individual man, but being each and every one of us. So it is far greater than one individual. And then at the end, the organizer says, let's do a Q&A. And there's two people who were obviously the followers of Christ. They were Christians.
I remember that when we were there.
Yeah.
That was quite.
But these were different people. And one of them, a lady, stood up and said, "You shouldn't be saying that." And I said, "Why not?" She said, "Because I believe in Christ." And I said, basically, okay. So where do you stand in relation to free speech? Is it only free speech if you agree with it? Because if you don't agree with it, you're telling me that I shouldn't be able to say it. So you're now better or now different to the state or the religion or the establishment that are also trying to shut me up. And these are within a so-called truth group environment, when in reality, the only truth that they want is the truth that they agree with. They're not going to evolve very far with that mentality. We need to start becoming serious. We need to start getting serious about what we are, who we are, how we just throw away our divinity willingly to anybody and start worshipping things outside of ourselves, which is really creating an ego out of a God out of their ego. Somebody asked me the other day, how do we take back what is ours? Well, you take what's out there and you bring it back to here. Because salvation, knowledge, wisdom, God, the temple, the church, the synagogue, the mosque, is this.
Well, I didn't want to go too far into it, but I mean, David Icke talks about we live in a 3D world. There's a 4D world that controls us, basically, which is reptilians, maybe, which is we go back to the holographic universe again, and we then, when we die, go to the 5th dimension, which is. I mean, what is that all really what you've been talking about as well? Because everything's the same, everything exists at the same time.
What we live in is a multidimensional existence, even though our awareness can.
Yeah, that's what I mean, because all those things are going on at once, aren't they?
So basically, our awareness is only in one place. Now, when I go to bed at night and I go to sleep, I have no awareness that this physical body exists because I'm somewhere else. Now, when I wake up in the morning, my awareness comes back to here, and I'm not aware of that, but I'm now aware of this. So we are living in a multidimensional frequency. Now, going back to what I said about dimensionless and dimensional, your physical eyes are in the dimensional universe. Your third eye is in the dimensionless universe. That is the all-seeing eye of the Illuminati. It is in the dimensionless universe. It can see beyond the physical universe. Our body is in the dimensional, but our mind is in the dimensionless. So just sitting here now, we are in multiple places at once, in multiple universes at once. Now, when you start looking at what is 3 dimension, what is 4 dimension, what is 5th dimension, the 5th dimension is the dimensionless universe. So we already exist in these things anyway. You are looking at what is creation. Creation is a frequency, it is a vibration. And each dimension will have its own supposed law of physics. The mathematical behavior of the dimensional universe is the law of physics. The mathematical behavior of the law of the dimensionless universe is thought. So when you think, you are in the dimensionless, and when you look at the law of physics, you are in the dimensional. Now, each of the dimensions will have its own mathematical reaction, which is its own law of physics. Now, when you align yourself to a particular timeline frequency or a different dimensional frequency, you are in that place. Now, if you maintain the frequency that got you to that place, you will remain in that place. So it's not something that we go to, it's something that we already exist within. And that really is misunderstood by so many people. The New Age talks a lot about the 5th dimension. We must go to the 5th dimension. you're already in the fifth dimension. If I say to you, on the 14th of December, I will meet you at Derby City Centre train station. Well, that's at 3 p.m. That is four-dimensional coordinates. Because I've given you a time, I've given you a location in three-dimensional space, a fourth-dimensional
I
space.
get you. Yes,
Time.
yeah.
So I'm now giving you a fourth-dimensional coordinate. So we're already living in the fourth dimension. We're all living in the third, the second, the first, and the fifth. So it's not necessarily a place you go to, it's a place that you're already in.
Yeah. I'm just starting to get my head around a lot of this, and it does actually start to make sense. So, I mean, anyone listening to this may think it's all a bit above them, but really, if they read a few of your books and probably a few of the David Icke books, you do start to get your head around the idea of things all happening at once. Now, I've got to go into the area where you get your knowledge, because you've had experiences with extraterrestrials, and where you're receiving this knowledge. It is not all something that you're making up in your head, is it?
No. There's multiple ways in which I get information. Some of it is meticulous research. Some of it is meticulous research that's been guided, and I can feel that it's been guided, and I know who's guiding it. And there'll be other moments where I go into what is called really a time slip, when I'm stepping out of the third dimension into a higher vision. And sometimes I can be sitting in this very seat in this very room that I'm talking to from now, and I have my notebook next to me and I'm writing. And as I'm writing, I am consciously aware of being in a different place. The last time it happened, I went back to medieval times, and I started to write with a feather and inkwell. Other times I've gone back to Egyptian temples, and I am aware that it is me walking through these Egyptian temples, and I am aware of the things that I'm seeing and how people are appearing and disappearing through a change and adjustment in frequency. And how I would describe that is, if you're at a hotel now, you're on the ground floor, and there's a group of people waiting for the elevator. The elevator comes down to the ground floor, it dings, the doors open, and there's people inside the elevator. And they say, "Oh, sorry, apologies, we're on the wrong floor." Press the button, the door closes, and the elevator leaves. The ancients used to do that, but with frequency. And when I've been in these time slips, I have seen them do it. And I've seen them appear and disappear through an adjustment in frequency. So when I'm in these time slips, even though it sometimes appears to me to be 4 or 5 seconds, there it is a considerable amount of time. And it is when I am there that a lot of information is passed to me, which I then bring back. So that there's different ways in which I get the information, through guided research, through my own meticulous research, and through time slips. In the last couple of days alone, and I'll go into it another time because I'm still working on it, but in the last couple of days alone, I have deciphered an extraterrestrial message in every single crop circle that has ever appeared. I have worked out what the Nazca lines are. Wow. I know what the Great Pyramid is. Now, this has been in the last couple of days alone. And when I've pretty much completed what Nazca is. I just have one small piece of the puzzle left before I can reveal. But in relation to crop circles, I have found words and letters inside the sound waves that create them, which are a message to humanity from the stars.
Wow.
And that, because it is the same message, it is in every single crop circle.
Well, it's all right. All right, let's go to crop circles just for a second there. Well, no, it's probably a longer than a second. But I mean, a lot of crop circles they say are not real, that are done by our own governments, or they've been faked by people with planks and everything. Yeah. So how do we tell which ones are real and which ones aren't?
Somebody once was on the Shrine of Information Facebook, and somebody put a picture of a crop circle, and they said, "I created this with a plank of wood." Now, for anybody who's ever been to where these crop circles are forming at night,
yeah, pitch black,
you cannot see your feet. Now, for anybody with geometric perfection to be able to do the geometry, to bend the crops without snapping them, and create this fantastic art, for me, is impossible. And I still wait the day that somebody takes me there and shows me. But they put a picture of a crop circle and says, I created this at night with a plank of wood. And I just put on the thread a comment, which was, can you please tell me how you managed to encrypt the diatonic ratios? And it was, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? Then you didn't do it. Because what I mean by that is, and Mozart and other great composers used to do the same thing. Every sound has a shape, and every shape is a sound. So when you see the likes of beautiful snowflakes and you see the geometry, that is sound. When you see beautiful crop circles, that is sound frozen. Now, if you were to unfreeze that sound, it will go back as being musical waves, sound waves. Now, in between sound waves, if you have a double sound wave, you can actually impregnate letters and words and sentences, which are then carried within the double sound waves. Now, as I say, Mozart did this in his symphonies. He used to send messages to people within the sound waves of his symphonies, as did Bach and other ones. So what I've found is within these diatonic ratios, which are basically mathematics and words within sound waves, a message has been conveyed. Now, this sound is what is creating the geometry of the crop circles. So whoever is putting them there is putting a diatonic ratio message deliberately within the shapes. And if it's our governments doing it, or it's people from the stars doing it, I know I've been told there's people from the stars doing it, sending information to humanity. So I know that, but can I prove it sitting there? No, but I know for a fact that it is messages from the stars. So they are deliberately encrypting a message within sound waves. Now, if you are able to understand the message, you'll be able to put the letters together into a sentence, into a message. It's like me sending you, letters in a hat, and you pick them out of the hat and you say A, N, G, E, L. Oh, it spells angel. That's what they're doing in relation to diatonic ratios and messages, mathematical messages hidden within sound waves. And it is the sound waves that are creating these shapes.
So some of these people that are actually going out and with their planks, they are actually being guided to do that work as well. Do you believe? Maybe.
Yes, and a lot of them have already admitted to that. A lot of them have said, I did go there with my plank of wood, but there was something influencing me. There was something.
Yeah, there's something telling them to do
going on that was instructing me.
Yeah.
So if you imagine that sometimes in a physical world you need a physical vessel. Somebody can speak to me from the spiritual world, but it is me that picks up the pen and begins to write with it. They may well be writing their message, but they need me to write it, to bring it into a manifestation of this dimension. So a lot of them have said, yes, I did it, but I was influenced to do it. And the other ones, as I say, they have no clue as to what it is. So I do know, because I've been told that it is messages from the stars, and I do know what that message is.
Wow.
And as I say, when I've got just the last little bit of the puzzle, it's only taken me 2 or 3 days to work it out. But when I get the last piece of the puzzle, then I'll be able to disclose it all.
So we should wait for that. So is this going to be another book that you're doing? I know you've got another book coming out very shortly.
The book that's coming out at the moment is called The Movement, Illumination of the World. And it is the subtitle that really tells you what the book's about, going back to when we
were talking about the illumination. Yeah.
So the one true teaching is illumination. So everything in the book really, it just covers everything, all bases. It goes into the meshes of the crop circles. It goes into what the Nazca lines are. It goes into what the pyramids are. The foreword of the book has been written by an extremely special person who has never ever done a foreword for anybody ever. and probably never ever will again. And I managed to get the foreword from that person.
Oh, what?
Again, when you see the book cover,
But you're not going to tell us who it is.
I'm not going to tell you who it is.
It isn't me.
I might tell you. I might tell you on the 14th of December. But
okay, right.
it pretty much covers everything from the crop circles, from Ascalons to the pyramids, to all the religions, to free energy, Tesla's 369 formula, how you separate hydrogen from water to create free energy. So many different things in terms of liquid light as a portal and a UFO craft fuel, and how they used to harness that and where from, to secret entrances of the Great Pyramid and what words you need and at what time, at what frequency you need to open up certain stones.
Wow.
So it pretty much covers everything in terms of what you need in one place. So if ever there is somebody who's serious about evolving themselves, because the universe is trying to reach and evolve to its maximum potential. Now that maximum potential is what we call God. So God is not the beginning as the creator, God is the end result. And so yet, God has not yet been created because the universe is not fully evolved. And when it fully evolves, it becomes actualized. Now, in the same vein, all of the component parts of that universe, including ourself, needs to evolve ourselves to our maximum potential, which is the godlike Godhead. So when you have the Godhead and God, you then have a comparable communication between your maximum, optimum potential. Now, if you notice, the world and society wishes to make you shrink and small. It does everything it can to stop you from expanding and being big. So it's taking you in the opposite direction to where the universe needs to go. So if we don't go with the universe, there is something called the law of evolution. And the law of evolution states that simpler life forms will be replaced by more complex life forms. So if we don't get it quick, then we may well be replaced for more complex life forms. So that really we need to get with the script, and we need to start stopping the evolution of the universe into its own God state. And this is covered in the book as well, with the advanced mathematics that prove that there is a singularity continuum between a dimensionless and a dimensional universe.
Well, it's certainly one to look out for. I'll be looking out for that one myself. So it's the new book, which is The Movement, and it'll be The Sub-Illumination of the World, which is coming out. Do you know when it's going to be published?
It's been written. It says The Movement, Illumination of the World, and I say it's been written. I'm speaking to somebody in America who has publishing contacts next week. So hopefully, if that goes well, then I'll be able to get it published and it'll be out hopefully in the next couple of months.
Yeah. I've seen the cover. Is that the cover it's going?
That's the cover with?
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically, what's happened? The story of the cover. There's a letter M that is clearly in ancient italics, created from light. Now that was basically the location of an event that I did, and this wasn't visible with the naked eye, and a photograph was taken, and this M appeared in this location, and everybody thought because I was speaking there, it must stand for Michael. That never felt right. And then several months later, I came across it, and he came to me what it meant. The M is basically the movement, and the movement are a group who call themselves the New Templars, as in the Knights Templars, and they are the religion of illumination, the movement illumination of the world. So that is where the book title came from.
Right.
So it didn't really, I chose that because it was really generic, and it didn't kind of back me into any particular corner for any particular subject. So I was able to put everything into it, and it would still fit under the umbrella of the illumination of the world.
Fascinating. Well, as always, Michael, you've blown my mind again, as you always do. I'm so looking forward to seeing you on the 14th of December. It's going to be a fantastic night. I know that. I don't, as I say, at this moment in time, I don't know if there's going to be any tickets left at this point as we're recording. There are at the moment, but when this goes out, I'm not quite sure if there will be. But anyway, I'm so looking forward to seeing you and David and Gareth on all discussing everything on the stage. It's going to be fantastic. But once again, Michael, it's been fantastic talking to you, and thank you so much for sparing the time to come on and doing this special with me.
Absolute pleasure again, anytime. I do enjoy it myself. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. But thank you very much, and it's been good.
It's good. Yeah, it's fantastic. Right. Thank you so much, Michael. And I'm looking forward to seeing you, and I'll see you on the day. And I hope it all goes well for you. Let's hope we all get there safely and it all goes off right.
And get there on time, which is the main thing.
Because at the moment, we don't know where it is. So we've all got to...
There'll be lots of people driving around Derby.
You take care of yourself as always.
You too, David. Thank you very much.
Love to your family and everything. And I'll see you soon. Take care, Michael.
You take care.
You. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.